Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to this live webinar covering Module 2 of the SEPAL online learning course. Thank you really so much for spending time with us today. My name is Erik Lindquist. I am a forestry officer with the Food and Agriculture Organization and one of the creators of the SEPAL platform. We will present to you today a lot of information. I hope we get it all in. I hope it is informative and interesting. And so we will start right away with housekeeping. We have to do housekeeping first. Some things I have to say. This webinar is being delivered in English with simultaneous interpretation in French and Spanish. The language of interpretation can be selected in the bottom bar of your Zoom interface. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available in the coming days in the Module 2 section of the course platform and will remain accessible until the closure of the course. If you are encountering technical issues with interpretation or sound, please let us know only through the chat box. You can ask your questions to the presenters only by using the Q&A option on your Zoom interface. Kindly note that your microphones are muted by default. If you need to speak during the Q&A, please raise your hand through the button on Zoom's interface so the presenters can give you the floor. If presenters give you the floor during the Q&A session, kindly turn on your video. Note that if your sound quality is poor, the interpreters cannot hear you while they speak at the same time, and you cannot be interpreted into the other languages. Poor sound could also affect the hearing of interpreters and other participants. Therefore, try to speak clearly and slowly. As a last note, we would like to provide some information on the content of this online session. You can ask your questions in English, French, or Spanish by using the Q&A box. The presenters will try to answer all questions during the Q&A session. If any of them remain unanswered due to time constraints, they will be collected and all answers made available in the coming days on the course platform. This session aims to provide an overview of the main points dealt with in the course materials of Module 2. However, you do not need to log into SEPAL. It's important. And you do not need to follow along step by step with all the points and steps explained during this session. So it's just to inform you and show you how to do these things. And you can you reference this at a later time as well. Following the delivery of this webinar, if you still have any questions about the SEPAL platform, please contact SEPAL's user community as indicated on the right-hand bottom side of the course interface. And once you have registered on SEPAL, you will automatically join the online community. So with that, housekeeping out of the way, let's move forward. Now is a good time for Earth observation. We have information available to us about the Earth's surface. We have more information available to us than we have ever had before. We have a satellite image archive that spans over 50 years, and we have new imagery acquired in the petabytes every day by sensors orbiting the Earth. It really is an incredible time to be working and interested in using remote sensing for any number of tasks. A challenge, however, remains to make the best use of these data. It used to be that our main problem was lack of data. Now, however, our challenge is being inundated by data and trying to understand which data to use in what circumstances. It can be daunting. The goal of the SEPAL project and the SEPAL platform is to help you do your job as efficiently as possible with the best data and the best algorithms available to produce information that is important and relevant to you at any scale. With the SEPAL project, we want to do exactly as this slide states. We want to improve data access, processing, and delivery of satellite data and information products to enable autonomous land monitoring capacity. What that means is that we want, again, for you to be able to do what you want to do, produce information and results that are relevant to you at any scale as efficiently and impactfully as possible. So what is SEPAL? What is it? SEPAL is a website, first off, and you can go there, sepal.io. I hope all of you have. SEPAL is a computing platform for easy query, access, and processing of Earth observation data. SEPAL is open source, completely free to use. All of SEPAL's code is available on GitHub. We want SEPAL to be a barrier buster of sorts. We want it to be a cloud-based catalyst for autonomous land monitoring. We want SEPAL to break down the barriers that historically have existed for accessing and processing these massive but extremely useful data sets. The SEPAL platform has two main parts. One part is based on Google Earth Engine attached to a user-friendly interface, and the other part consists of open source software such as R statistical software, Python, GDAL, and others that could be run in a Unix operating system. We consider this system extremely flexible. It encompasses preset routines and recipes. We'll learn more about that later. That can be run easily with the click of a mouse, but at the same time can accommodate advanced user-written computer code to do just about anything that you may want to do using remotely sensed data. The real point behind the SEPAL platform is data and algorithm democratization. We want to make the data as easy to access from anywhere for anybody. We want the algorithms to be applicable and useful and easy to run for anybody anywhere. All of this to help further the cause of autonomous land monitoring and to recognize that local knowledge applied to these useful data sources can equate to better decision-making and impact at hopefully all spatial scales. With SEPAL, we want to reduce the time from innovation to adoption. If a good idea or a good process is discovered or used by created by a SEPAL user, we want that good idea, that innovation, to be easily disseminated throughout the SEPAL user community. We want to remove the fear of making mistakes. We want to encourage fast failure, thereby at the same time encouraging solution finding and impact. And we want to promote collaboration using a common platform that enables any user anywhere to perform complex analyses in a very standard way. And again, we really want to break down the barriers to access and use of analysis-ready data, supercomputing power, and eliminate the time and effort it takes to maintain and update software dependencies. Basically, anything that might otherwise deter a novice user or even advanced user from applying these data to what could be and should be solvable environmental problems. So all of this in a nutshell is what the platform is all about. What follows is a little bit more about the platform, the data contained or accessible within it, and just some pretty pictures really showing quickly what the platform is capable of. Using SEPAL, you can access the entire Landsat archive, the entire Sentinel-1 and 2 archives. You can access NICFI planet base maps, and coming soon, you'll be able to access the ALOS Pulsar L-band radar data. All these data are accessed through the data catalog of the Google Earth Engine. The platform is accessible from a variety of devices, including laptops, tablets, and mobile devices. The platform has many inbuilt functionalities, including that make interpretation and analysis easier for the user. In this slide, we see an example of how SEPAL's user interface could be divided into multiple screens simultaneously, viewing satellite imagery classifications, radar imagery, all of which can be used to help assess the quality of an image classification, interpret land-covered land use in very large areas, and generally assist a user to make the best use of the available satellite imagery for whatever task is being carried out. These are just a few examples of what the SEPAL platform can do. SEPAL can generate quickly image composites from Landsat and Sentinel-2. It can generate image composites from Sentinel-1 radar data. We can track soil moisture over time, and we can create large area mosaics for classification. This is an example of how SEPAL can be used to monitor and perform triage on active fires around the world. Active fire starts are taken from the FIRMS database and compared with time-coincident, high-resolution satellite imagery from NICFI Planet Program. And this way, we can size up fires, we can measure fire progression, ultimately fire severity can be assessed, and appropriate actions taken. This is just another cool picture of a fire that you can actually see the smoke in the fire front progressing. Through the SEPAL platform, it is easy to access all of the NICFI planet base maps. We'll learn more about these later in the presentation. This is an example of what analyzing those base maps look like. We can classify the direction and magnitude of land cover change over large areas. The red represents vegetation loss, green represents vegetation gain, and the saturation of the color represents the magnitude of those gains and losses. And here we just see the power of accessing the high spatial resolution data as very subtle changes are detectable in high detail. This is an example of using machine learning techniques to classify individual tree crowns, again, using the planet data. Here is an example of detecting forest restoration. You can see the forest is regrown, and we can actually detect that in the imagery. So that was a quick introduction to the SEPAL platform and its capabilities. The platform and the algorithms and the data available and accessible through the platform, of course, are thanks to a strong collaboration between a large number of organizations. We want to acknowledge their contribution, and we are grateful, of course, to all of them for helping us keep SEPAL on the cutting edge, we hope, of satellite data processing. Now I will turn the microphone over to my colleague, Teopista Nakalema. Teo will take you through the introduction to the SEPAL interface and demonstrate how optical mosaics are created using the platform. So Teo, please.
Thank you so much, Erik, and hello, everyone. I welcome you all, and I thank you for your participation in this session. My name is Teopista Nakalema, and I work as a geospatial analyst on the SEPAL team, and I'm honored to speak with you today. I'm going to share with you a simple sign-up process. I'll take you through an overview of the SEPAL functionalities, and then show you a quick live demo of the mosaic creation within the SEPAL platform. So as Erik has already introduced, SEPAL is a website, and you can access it through any web browser like Google Chrome. And you simply need to type in the word sepal.io, and it will load a landing page which has the launch button, as we can see on the screen. And when you click on this launch button, it will open another page which has a few features, including a general introduction to the main features of the platform. And then it has options for either login or sign up. And then the language options, which you can select your preferred language, either English, French, or Spanish. So if you have an account already, you can go on and log in into the platform, or you go through the sign up process where you click on the sign up button. It opens a form with required information for you to fill. And when you finish successfully to fill in the options, an email will be sent to your email address that you specified. And this email will have a link to activate your account. And if you follow the link, it will give you an option to set your password, which you specify your password of interest that you would like to have for your account. And after setting this account, your account will be active, and you can log in and start using the SEPAL platform. So that is it for having an account. However, to fully benefit from all the SEPAL features and functionalities, we recommend to take a few more steps, which I can go through quickly. The first one being requesting for additional resources. And these resources enable you to run any processes and store data on the platform. So you can request these resources using the $ icon, which is located at the bottom right side of the platform. I will show you where it is located when I'm doing a live demo. And when you click on this, a window opens showing your user report, showing how much resources you have and how much you have used. And to request for more resources, you click on the green button, which has request additional resources. Another dialog box opens and you can type in the amount that require for each of the options. And then you can type in a message and you click apply. A message will be sent to the SEPAL admin who will review your request and grant you the request for the resources, and you can go on to the next. So the next step or recommendation that we really recommend that you do is to link your Google Earth Engine account with the SEPAL account. This gives you access to the Google Earth Engine data through the SEPAL account, and it allows you to read and write Google Earth Engine assets. And in case you don't have a Google Earth Engine account, it is recommended that you create one. And if you have one, you can link the two accounts so that you can easily benefit from this feature. And to do this, it is also done through the platform where you locate the icon on the left bottom, on the right bottom, on the bottom right side of the platform, which is your username. You click on it and then it gives you a user details. And if you are not connected, it will be showing disconnected, as we can see in this example. And to go ahead and connect, you click on your Google account, which is located at the on the bottom of the dialog box. When you click this, it will take you through a number of steps that you go through so that you can connect to Google Earth Engine. And then the last step is exchanging files using FileZilla. So at the moment, we have a file manager within the platform where you can download data from your platform. However, the system is limited at the moment. You can only download a single file. So we recommend using FileZilla, which is a third-party software to ensure bulk download of files from SEPAL to your local computer and vice versa. And all you need to do is to download this software and install it on your computer. And then you can connect to Google, you can connect to SEPAL using this, some of the information that is listed here. So in short, those are the basic steps that you need to go through to have an account fully functional and running. And when you do that, you'll be able to have fun and run processes, test and fail and learn. So yeah, that is it for that part. So allow me to proceed to the next part where I'm going to take you through the main features of the platform. And in general, we have mainly three features that are core to the functioning of the SEPAL platform, which include recipes, modules, also called applications, and then instances. So I'm going to shortly go through one of each, mentioning what they can do and what you can benefit from it. So the interface of the platform is designed to ensure easy navigation and performing of tasks. And that's how the platform is organized. On the left side, we have icons which can help you to perform several tasks and utilize the SEPAL functionalities. And here we have the first icon. which is the process and recipes tab, where you can create several types of recipes. And basically, a recipe is a record of steps and parameters used to make a data set, such as a mosaic, a time series stack, or classification. And you can see in the middle of the screen a number of recipes that you can create to benefit from this tab. The next tab is the files tab, where you can see and access your SEPAL files, and the data you upload or process in the platform are saved in this tab. From here, the files can be downloaded to your local computer, and then you can also delete files from your SEPAL account if you no longer need them. Okay, moving on to the third icon, which is the terminal bar. The terminal is where you can start and stop computers in the cloud and perform operations using the Linux commands. Access to these cloud computers provides high processing power than any powerful local computer that you might have. So in order to run any SEPAL applications, you need to start an instance. And when you start any application, the smallest instance starts automatically. But if you need to process, to use an application that needs more powerful instances, you can enter into the instances, select what machine or instance you require for that application in this terminal. The fourth icon is the application tab, and this tab enables access to a wide range of applications, or also called modules, to perform different tasks. And these are predefined tools developed using either Python or R programming. And these perform tasks that enable, for example, monitoring forest changes, soil moisture mapping, or fire mapping. So there are a range of tools that you can explore and test out under this tab. Okay, and then the fifth icon is the tasks tab. This is where you can see the tasks you are running, and tasks are basically downloads taking place between SEPAL and Google Earth Engine, and you can see the progress and the ultimate success or failure of a download under this tab. And finally, as I mentioned up, we have the bottom right of the screen, where we have the resources icon. And these resources enable you to run the computers and applications and storage of user data. But one important thing to note here is that users don't have to pay for these resources. For when someone sees a $sign, they're like, okay, this is money. You don't have to worry about that. And SEPAL is free for all to use. This practice is just done to ensure accountability, to ensure that the usage of the resources, the SEPAL, is monitored by the SEPAL team. So you don't have to worry about that. So in a nutshell, those are the main features of the platform, and I thank you all for listening. Yes, so I can proceed to the short live demo, which I'm going to share with you how you can create a quick and easy optical mosaic. Give me a moment. Okay, so in the web browser, okay, so now I am on the SEPAL landing page, and I'm going to launch and log in and go through the process of creating a mosaic. So as I shared with you earlier, we have the platform looking like this with the different features that I talked about. And for the mosaic creation, I'm going to go in the process tab where I create a recipe. And then a variety of recipes you can select from are here. For this example, I'll go with the optical mosaic. And then when I click on the optical mosaic, I have a dialog box that appears on the bottom right of the screen with the first option to select the area of interest. And under the area of interest, I have three options. I can use the country boundaries. I can use this Google Earth Engine asset, or I can draw a polygon. So I would go with the easiest, which is specifying a country. And in this case, I can select Uganda. And if I want to specify a province, I can type it here. But for this case, I would like to proceed with only the country boundary, which is shown in the screen here. And I click on next. And when you click on next, you have the next option, which is to select the preferred date for your mosaic that you would like to create. And I'm not going to change the date, but you can select as far as the earliest images. For in this case, the optical mosaic, I'm targeting either Landsat or Sentinel-2. And I'll leave it to default as a year. And then we go to the next, which is the sources. And these include the data sets that you can select from. We have a series of Landsat images and Sentinel-2. And I can select the maximum cloud cover, which I would like to have in the mosaic. I leave everything to default. And then when I do that, I will have the process running here, where the process starts to load the images or the mosaic that I'm creating. So like I mentioned, a recipe is a record of steps and parameters that you set, and these are the parameters on the left. We started with the area of interest, date, and then specify dates. We have other advanced options which we can also set, but for the purposes of this webinar, I'll stick to the defaults and I will not change this, but you can go ahead and explore more. So here it loads. It takes quite of time depending on how big or small your area of interest is. If it is small, it will take quite a short time. And after you see the image loading here. So in the meantime, I would like to show you also a mosaic with planet, which loads very fast and it is very, very good. And I would like to go through the same process where I click add recipe, planet, and then go through the same process, select my area of interest, say Uganda, leave the dates to default, 2023, NICFI base maps, and I say done. And it will load as fast as possible, as fast as less than a second. So, and that's how you have a mosaic. Let me see. And also we have the Landsat has finished to load. And for visualization purposes, I can change the combination of bands to view it in a different kind of band that I'm interested in. And then one other important feature is if I'm interested in retrieving the information so that I can have it on either my SEPAL workspace or Google Earth Engine, I can save the recipe and the images will be downloaded. And here you can select a number of bands that you would like to have, and then the scale, and then specify where you want it to be saved. And then you can also specify, you can also save the recipe by maybe planet, a meaningful name that you remember, Uganda 2023. And then you can select to, you can click to save. And yeah, I think that is it. Or maybe one other thing, if you retrieve your information, it will show in the tasks bar how far it has gone, and then you can afterwards access it and download it from the files tab. And with that, I thank you all for listening, and thank you so much. I give the floor back to Erik. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teo. That was really good. Appreciate that. Yeah, very succinct overview of all of the most of the features of the interface and how to use the optical remote sensing data for best effect. I should just point out quickly also that you know, Teo showed Landsat data, but the same is possible with Sentinel-2 data, which is from the European Space Agency, and you can change the sensor to Landsat, Sentinel-2, and Planet for the optical data. I would like to go ahead now and let's see, share screen again. Let's see if this works. Great, look at that. So Teo covered optical mosaics. The same can be done with radar data as well. So radar mosaics are done in a very similar way. Maybe if we have time towards the end of the session, we can look also at how you make a Sentinel-1 C-band radar data mosaic, because that's also very interesting and very easy to do in SEPAL that maybe not all of you have tried before, the radar. But moving on to classification. So next we will try to we'll demonstrate how to classify a satellite image using SEPAL. So the SEPAL classification recipe is located in the main recipe list, as Teo showed. And this time, instead of optical mosaic, you will choose classification. To classify an image or stack of images, you can simply click on the recipe and follow the necessary steps. Before we show the demo here, SEPAL classification is a supervised classification approach. That means that training data must be collected in some way from an expert that knows, or from somebody that knows what is actually on the ground. They must provide examples of that, and then those examples are used in a classification model to create a classified map. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and share my full screen here with, let me stop, share screen, basic, and share that. Let me go to, sorry, where is it? There we go. Okay, so this is my SEPAL recipe screen, and I already have 2 optical mosaics that I created from an earlier time. So I have a scene from over Paraguay. So once as Teo showed, you rename the tab of the screen you're working in, and that will save the recipe. So if I want, so this is a recipe I saved from a prior session. And if I want to draw it on screen again, see it again, I just have to click on it and up will pop the recipe will be recreated on the fly. So while that's being done there, I will add a new window, add a new recipe. And in this case, I will choose classification. So the first thing SEPAL wants to know when you're doing a classification is what you want to classify, which makes sense. So please add at least 1 image to classify. So I will add an image. I can either add a saved SEPAL recipe or an Earth Engine asset. If you're classifying a very large area, it is best to save as an Earth Engine asset first. If you're classifying a relatively small area, you can use a saved SEPAL recipe. So I'll use a saved SEPAL recipe. And I can see Paraguay test 2021. And then I can choose the bands I want to, or many bands. I can choose the bands I want to use in my classification. For this, sake of this demo, I will just use a few. There. So once I select the bands, I have my image. I need a legend. I need to tell the computer or tell the model what classes I will actually classify. So in this case, I can add a class, call it tree. Can add another class and call it, we'll just call it non-tree. And basically that's it. You can load as many classes as you would like. And for each class, you should have examples of what that class actually is on the ground, ready to go, or know where those classes exist. So tree and non-tree, done. Now it's what's happening now is SEPAL's waiting for me to add training data to the image. So to see exactly where to put the training data, where to put the examples of the classes, let me do that again so you can all see. There's a layers icon in the upper right part of the screen. If I click on that, I can add imagery to the screen that will help me classify or enter training data for the classification. In this case, I will just use the NICFI planet composites and close. So there you see, these are the NICFI planet composites, and I can add training data to the map this way, or to the screen this way. To add training data, I click on the Enable Reference Data Collection icon on the right-hand side. And then I can, there we go. Click in the map or click on the image, and it will ask me, what is this location? Is it tree or non-tree? And I will say that it is tree. I will click in this location and say that it is non-tree. And immediately the classifier should begin to perform a classification, which will appear shortly on the screen. Ideally, you will want more than 2 training data points. You should have many training data points in order to perform a better, as good a classification as possible, or as accurate a classification as possible. But you can keep adding training points to the screen. I can also add the actual recipe I am classifying to the screen to be sure that sometimes if the dates of the NICFI, or if the dates of your imagery that you're using to create training data do not match the dates of the imagery that you are classifying, that can cause a problem. There we go. So there is a classification done with 2 training data points over this portion of Paraguay. And actually, it looks okay with only 2 training data points. Obviously, for more complex areas or for larger areas, you would want to add more training data, but the principle is the same. The process is the same. You can also import training data that exists from a field survey, let's say field data, or some other data collection process. So if you collect data points in QGIS or some other GIS software, you could import them here and apply it to a classification. You can change, I should mention, you can change also the classifier. So by default, SEPAL uses a random forest classification, but there are many others available. And there are many options that you can, many parameters that you can change to get a better classification, depending on how much you know about a given classifier or the purposes of the classification. Okay, so there's a classification, a simple classification, but what if we want to do now change detection? So let's look at how to do a change detection in SEPAL. So to do a change detection, I'm going to add a window. I'm going to add a recipe. And we do not have a recipe for change detection. Oh, but we do have the same classification recipe that I can apply to 2 images, each from a different time period. So I will select classification recipe. And this time, instead of adding just 1 image to classify, I will add 2 images, one from 2021 and another from 2022. So I can add image. It's a saved SEPAL recipe. I could say 2021. I can say the same bands. Apply. I can add another image, and this is a saved SEPAL recipe. This one I can, from 2022. Make sure I choose the same bands so that I'm comparing the same bands. And now I have 2 images loaded in the classification dialog. Again, it will ask for a legend. What are my classes that I want to classify? This time, instead of adding tree and no tree, I will actually add the classes for change. I will use the classes for change. So we will say stable tree, stable non-tree, tree cover loss, and tree cover loss. Let's just do 3 classes for now. Done. Again, I can add the different recipes to my window so I can actually see where tree cover change is taking place. let's actually add also the NICFI planet data. So basically, I will enable training data collection. I will click in a zone and it will ask me what this is. This will be stable tree. This is stable tree, stable tree. If I want to click on stable non-tree, I can click, let's see, find stable non-tree. There's stable non-tree. And then if I want to find the class tree cover loss, I can see that in this area here, we have tree cover loss. So I can click in those boxes, in that zone, and change the label to tree cover loss. So again, this will be producing a classification on the fly of stable tree, stable non-tree, and tree cover loss using the information from the two images that I loaded into the view, the dialog box for which images to classify. And it should come up with a it is. And every time I add a new training point, it's going to try to rerun the classification. And this is done once it runs. Once it is much more quick to keep running again every time you add a training point. I'm not sure we need to stay and see the end of this classification. Maybe I show it later and move on. But anyway, this is the process for classification and change detection in SEPAL. I should say, I should go back to the presentation. I'll stop sharing. Then reshare one more time. Okay. Let me go to this part. So I should say that we have multiple ways of doing change detection in SEPAL, and I showed you one of the ways. So one of the ways is direct change detection, where you use before and after image composites and a supervised classification on change, no change areas. We have other ways of analyzing change in SEPAL that are also a bit more complex, but very, I guess, fun to try. And that is using dense time series analysis, which I will not go into too much detail, just to mention that we have access to what is called the CCDC algorithm. And there is information about the CCDC algorithm in the course materials, plus a SEPAL index change recipe. We also have the BFAST algorithm, plus a time series of satellite imagery. And we also have a cumulative sums algorithm, plus a time series of imagery. And those are covered, some of those are covered in the course materials. I think CCDC and BFAST are covered in the course materials, and the QSUM algorithm is covered in the SEPAL documentation. So what I showed you was, of course, direct change detection. So we're just at about an hour, maybe just a little bit under an hour. And we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of material in a very short period of time. We've covered an introduction to SEPAL and the platform setup. We've covered optical and, well, we didn't really cover radar mosaics, did we? But maybe we can in a few minutes here. We covered supervised classification of satellite images, and we've covered direct change detection using 2 satellite images from 2 different time periods. And I would like to leave as much time for Q&A as possible, so we can stop the presentation here and move to a Q&A session, if that is agreeable for people. Otherwise, I'm also happy to show a live demo of a Sentinel-1 radar mosaic. So we can't all vote, I suppose, but if there are Q&As, if I'm not quite sure how this is happening, will the Q&A be facilitated? And if so, I think it should be facilitated. Can somebody facilitate a QA session? Or is that up to me?
Remy's hand is up.
Hi, I don't know if we can take all, but there's a lot of question regarding how FileZilla is functioning and what can block the usage of it and downloads in general. So maybe that's one topic we want to start with.
Okay, excellent. Yes. So with FileZilla, to enable communication between FileZilla and SEPAL, you need to request user resources, because in order to download or upload files to SEPAL, you will need to have some of those user resources in order to run the computer in the cloud that is required to transfer data between your computer and your SEPAL workspace. So if FileZilla is not connecting for you, please request from us some resources. Those requests will be answered as fast as possible, and then you will be able to use FileZilla to connect to SEPAL. I think that is the reason why people are having issues connecting. So in order also to download data to start applications or modules, you will need to have user resources available.
And Eric, there was a question on this. How do you request resources? And we pointed out to where to do it, but if that's something you want to do and show, just where to click the button.
Sure. Let me break the presentation mode here and reshare my screen. Yes, can never talk enough about, oh, I did it. Can never talk enough about user resources. So very, very quickly, user resources, you request user resources by clicking in the bottom right-hand side of the SEPAL interface, where it says $0 per hour. Oops, remove. You click on that, and you will have the option for requesting additional resources. So the typical amount of resources to start is probably like 5, 5, and 10. or something like that, 20. So 5, 5, and 20, you write a little message here saying, dearest SEPAL people, we would love to do we are working on such and such land cover, change detection, saving the world in some way. And then you click apply, and a message will be sent to us, and we will give you those resources to do what you need to do. And when you have those resources, then you will be able to connect FileZilla and exchange files between SEPAL. So I have Q&A here too. But it's not efficient for me to read the Q&A and try to keep going here. So
Erik, there was another question that regarding how many points do you need for a classification? Maybe you want to elaborate on that?
yes. Okay, that is a very good question. How many points do you need to do a classification? Well, you can see that we made a classification with 2 points, 1 point per class. That is the bare minimum. That is the bare minimum you need to run a classification. If you try to get away or publish or use a map based on 1 training point per class, you might be looked at funny by your colleagues and the people you present that map to. But there is no set number of points required, training data points required to produce a map. It really, in the end, is up to the user and also the purpose of the product. So basically the answer is sort of whatever makes something that looks good and is accurate would be the number of points required. Certainly for training data collection, you want to collect training information from sort of a geographic representation of your area of interest. So not just from one specific spot, but try to cover the entire portions of the entire area of interest so that all of the different geographical variation can be represented in the training data. Does that help? I hope that helps.
Erik, I'll keep giving you like the most relevant questions I see.
Thank you. Yes, that's a great idea.
And there's also a couple of hands that are being raised, and I don't know if you want to keep the floor maybe, but I'll let Vanessa deal with those. In the meantime, there's interesting questions regarding how do you integrate SEPAL with an FMS and how they can work together.
Right. Okay, that is a very good question. So SEPAL is designed to be used in any number of ways within an existing national forest monitoring system. It is not a platform that once you start using it, you have to use it for all the other aspects of a forest monitoring system. It's really designed so that if building optical mosaics in a matter of minutes instead of days, weeks, or months, if building optical mosaics in a matter of minutes helps your forest monitoring, then you can jump into SEPAL, create your mosaics, download them to Earth Engine or download them to your SEPAL workspace, and then further to your own laptop or desktop. And then you're done with SEPAL, and you can go on about your ordinary or your normal workflow. Likewise, if you'd like to do all of your optical mosaic, radar mosaic, change detection, time series analysis, if you'd like to do all of that within SEPAL, it's totally possible to do that. So it's really designed to be a tool that helps facilitate your existing national forest monitoring systems, or help to improve a forest monitoring system, or help to even start a monitoring system if you do not have one. So I think it's designed to be very flexible that way. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
Erik, it's okay for you. Maybe we can give the floor to some of the participants that are raising hand.
Yes. Let's hear other voices.
Let's try with Juan Lopez. If possible, I would suggest participants to try to make their question in English so they can be translated by interpreters. If not, well, Erik speaks very well French and Spanish, so we can try to manage. Let's see, Juan Lopez, I'm going to allow you to talk. I hope it works. I think the audio is not good. Sorry for that, Juan. We cannot hear you. Maybe you can try to just write your question in the question and answer. Echo, Juan, hi.
Oh, good. The change works.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. I could not see precisely where is the screen where you split your screen to see the training samples and the background image, your NICFI image. Yes, in that point, how could you split your screen that way?
Yes, thank you, Juan, for the question. So to split the screen and add different layers to your screen, you can use, there's a layers icon in the upper right part of the user interface. If I click on that layers icon, then you can add different layers to the screen. By default, we have the NICFI, the latest, this would be the latest base map. So from probably last month. We also have the Google high-res satellite imagery, and then you can add recipes to, you can add images to this list. So if you can add an existing SEPAL recipe, you can add an Earth Engine asset. And if you have your own, some people have their own Planet account that has different products than the NICFI base maps offer. If you have your own Planet account, you can connect your own Planet imagery as well to to this tool, and then slide the layers over and back depending on what you want to see in the screen. So again, it's the layers button here in the top right corner of the screen.
Thank you, Erik.
Thank you, Juan. We have also another Juan Manuel. I'm going to allow you to speak if you can unmute and make your question. You have to unmute. Juan Manuel, can you hear us? Okay, if not, we can pass to Ernest. Ernest, can you hear us? If you unmute your microphone, okay,
Yes, I can hear you.
welcome. Please go ahead with your question.
Actually, I raised the hand at the time when Erik was presenting. I was curious to know how to import the existing training points, because I think what Erik showed, it was how to prepare the training points on the fly.
Yes, okay, good question. Oh, let me move that. So here, so under the training button in the classification recipe, here we have collected reference data. And by this, we mean the reference data we have collected on the screen. We can add reference data, training data here through either a CSV file that has, so it would have latitude, longitude, and the class ID, basically. And this would correspond to your legend that you created in the legend step. So those things need to correspond to each other. You can also, if you have your data saved in an Earth Engine table, you can use that. You can use an existing classification to derive training data. So this is an interesting option. Let's say, there are many global land cover products, land cover maps that exist.
Okay.
You can use a global product or a previous year's national product. And this routine subsamples from within the classes in that map and makes a new classification using new satellite imagery. It's a very interesting way to make use of global products and make them locally relevant. And then you also have a saved SEPAL recipe. So you can use training data from a saved SEPAL recipe. So all of these options exist.
Thank you, Ernest. Now I have John in the list. John, you are now able to talk. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for this training. I am new to SEPAL, but I've been working using some other tools, on georeferenced data. But my question is, if it's possible to use SEPAL to create some distribution map for, say, a rare plant species using classification function in a SEPAL, where you use training data which have been collected from the field, where you use the unique spectral signature for this rare plant species to create a distribution map. I don't know if SEPAL can do that. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the question. I mean, in principle, yes, it is possible. You can, you would have to have examples. I mean, using the classification recipe, you would have to have examples of where those plant species were occurring, so that you could find so you could train the model to find other places that looked like that plant species. There are a lot of caveats with what I said. So it is possible. The the resolution, like the spatial resolution of the data will probably highly affect what type of species or species assemblages you are able to accurately classify. Also remember that what we're looking at with the satellite image or with the optical data is the top of the canopy generally. So if you're trying to identify species that are below the top of the canopy, it gets much more difficult, if not impossible. And also, if you're looking for just one single species or like one single tree in a forest, that is, with these data, it's I would say it's very difficult, if not also impossible. So large areas of a species that you can see the top of basically are possible to do. We are experimenting with, or we hope to be experimenting with hyperspectral data, which, you know, we see here some of these satellites that we're looking at here have 7, 15 different bands of data within them. A hyperspectral image will have hundreds of different bands, so capture imagery or capture information from many different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. And it is possible with hyperspectral imagery in some ways to map species assemblages and species, plant species like that as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I would say to try, if you have good examples of where those plant species are, try the classification module with the Landsat data, with the Sentinel-2 data. Even the Sentinel-1 data may help you, depending. And then also it's possible to look at time series information to sort of study like plant phenology. So when plants green up, when they die, and how long they stay dormant. So we're also using quite a bit of that technology these days to try and get at species in addition to just tree, no tree kind of things. So using plant phenology metrics, all of those things can help you, and they're all possible within SEPAL.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we continue, Erik? We still have 17 minutes before the end. Can we continue with the participants that have raised hand? Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear what people have to ask.
Great. So Godino from Kenya. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing well your name. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking, how do you zero down, and especially the area of interest from the country level to province, because that is what I saw as the only option. Now to the district level or to the lowest level or the locality.
Yes, thank you for the question. In SEPAL at the moment, we have only by default, we have, as you saw, country boundaries, and I guess you would call them first layer or first level administrative units.
Yeah.
We have not added smaller units than that. So my advice, we may do at some point. My advice to you now would be to like use a, let's see, add recipe. Let's just do planet. So my advice to you would either be to, if you are familiar with how to use Earth Engine, you can upload your shape files or whatever they may be shapefiles probably, to Earth Engine as an Earth Engine asset, and then read that asset as your area of interest in SEPAL, or the sort of the brute force way of doing this would be just to click on draw a polygon, and then in draw a polygon, I can basically just, click on any area of any size and complete basically the same steps, and it will create the image for the hand-drawn polygon.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more hands raised. Boiro, I'm going to give you the floor. Please go ahead. You need to unmute. Yes. Can you speak, please?
Oui, bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Plus ou
Yeah.
moins.
D'accord, ça doit être pour deviner sur la connexion. Bon, je me présente, c'est Edna Mombaro des eaux et forêts. J'habite au Sénégal, particulièrement dans la région orientale. Depuis 2 ans, on est sur un vaste chantier de restauration des forêts classées. J'aimerais savoir aujourd'hui si nous voulons intégrer ces forêts classées, où nous sommes en train de mener des activités de restauration.
Ok, bon, je vais répéter la question en anglais pour les interpréteurs. If I understood correctly, they are interested, and Remy, please help me. They are interested in knowing or identifying where areas of forest restoration have occurred in Senegal.
Yes, and also the so-called classified forests.
Yes.
Oui, oui, oui.
Okay.
Effectivement.
Okay. Yes, it's possible. It is possible in SEPAL to find areas of, I do not know exactly what is meant by classified forest, but I do know that you can easily detect forest, and you can detect forest restoration using.
Voilà, nous ici, ce que nous appelons forêt classée, en fait, c'est des superficies de forêt qui ont été, en tout cas, classées par décret présidentiel, où des activités sont limitées. Et la gestion est exclusivement au service des eaux et forêts. Donc, c'est comme les aires protégées en quelque sorte.
Okay.
Voilà, voilà.
Oui, ça je comprends. So classified forests are decreed by presidential decree or by law. They are like protected areas in a sense, where activities are limited by law. Those zones, yes, you can probably easily detect those zones using a classification recipe. You may also be able to detect zones of restoration using time series analysis, or I can show you quickly. We have a recipe here for what is called CCDC, which is continuous change detection and classification. And this creates a time series of over any time period of interest for any area of interest. Mm-hmm. And you can use this information. There's I would recommend going to the SEPAL documentation, where we describe how to use CCDC in conjunction with CCDC slice and index change. I think these are described in the documentation, to automatically detect areas where vegetation is being restored or being regenerated, basically. Also, because we have a 50-year time span, well, essentially a 50-year time span archive of satellite imagery, often these decreed zones of forest, maybe they have been existing for a long time. You can look back in the satellite image archive, identify those areas, and then follow them through time to current day to see how they are, what their current status is, or by the same token, identify areas to further protect. I hope that answers the question.
Oui, oui, effectivement. J'avais une dernière question avec votre permission.
Sure. Oui, bien sûr.
Voilà, voilà. Donc, avec voilà, SEPAL, quand on démarrait juste le cours, le début de l'utilisation de logiciel, si en fait on pouvait avoir là-dessus, en tout cas, une vidéo, comment télécharger le logiciel, l'installation et surtout paramétrer les langues, en tout cas, ça serait intéressant parce que moi, au niveau de mon écran, je ne voyais pas clairement sur les étapes de ces explications, si on pouvait en tout cas revenir là-dessus ou bien à la limite dans cette discussion de nous présenter en tout cas une vidéo dans laquelle nous pouvons conserver. C'est vrai qu'on travaille un peu avec les logiciels de graphie tels que Google Earth avec QGIS, ArcGIS, mais quand même ce logiciel c'est assez nouveau pour nous faciliter à se familiariser davantage.
Okay. That was a bit difficult for me to hear.
Erik, the
Yeah.
gentleman wanted to know where they could find resources to have access to the documentation and tutorials, and probably the best is to show docs.sepal.io.
Yes, let me show. So to go to SEPAL docs, you go to the URL docs.sepal.io, and you will see the documentation. This is in English at the moment. We are working to translate this completely into French and Spanish, and actually multiple languages. So I don't know if it's ready in French at the moment or not, but this will show you how to do all of these things that we talked about today and more.
Thank you, Erik. We have a few more people raising hands, so maybe we can just, as we don't have too much time left, I will invite them to be very concise if possible in their questions. Diallo, you're the next. Can you hear us? Can you unmute your microphone? Diallo is muted. We can echo. Can you hear us, Diallo? We cannot hear you, unfortunately. If not, maybe you can make your question in the question and answer section. And maybe we can pass to Asar. Asar.
Sí,
Yeah.
sí.
Yeah, please
Buenas
go ahead.
Sí, soy Severo de Guinea Ecuatorial. y me parece interesante el curso y siempre que tengo la oportunidad de participar y hablar directamente con Erik o con Remy. Nosotros aquí en África tropical tenemos un problema serio, que es el tema de las nubes. Hay un montón de nubes que tenemos acá, es a nivel natural. Y por eso cuando tenemos que hacer una clasificación supervisada con SEPAL, y teniendo en cuenta que tenemos una nubosidad muy extensa, me gustaría saber si podemos fiarnos de esos resultados que podemos obtener de la clasificación. Gracias.
Okay, to repeat the question, so the questioner is from who I know is from Equatorial Guinea, and they have problems as places in this part of the world do with cloud cover. So this is even with planet data, which basically consists of imagery acquired almost every single day. And this is a best pixel composite of Equatorial Guinea for 2023. So these are the best pixels available for 2023, and still you can see much cloud cover. So the question is, how do you ameliorate the effects of cloud cover in the classification, if I understand correctly the question?
Sí, no sé si le he cogido bien. La cuestión es que nosotros aquí tenemos un montón de problemas de velocidad. Por eso me gustaría más o menos que cuando estemos trabajando, si pueda haber especie de imágenes que tengan menos nubes y así poder intentar tener imágenes que pueden darnos los buenos resultados en la clasificación. Por eso no sé si a nivel de SEPAL podríamos más o menos nosotros intentar reducir ese nivel de nubosidad.
Okay, yes. So yes, so the question is, how do you select, or can you select imagery that has reduced amount of cloud cover in order to make a final product that has the least amount of cloud cover possible? And the answer is yes. You can select images individually. So actually all of the imagery, so by default, SEPAL uses all of the imagery, all of the acquisitions available during the time period of interest. You can select images individually to automatically reduce the amount of cloud cover. That is described in one of the presentations in the course material, how to select images individually. So you can hand select images that have less cloud cover. Also, there are options here when you configure an optical mosaic, there are options for some corrections that you can apply. You can use cloud detection that in just the QA bands plus a cloud score. You can turn cloud masking off. You can have moderate cloud masking, or you can actually have even more aggressive cloud masking. These are things that you can select in the composite parameters. You can buffer clouds, so to even reduce even more the effect of clouds. So I would try, aggressive cloud masking, moderate or even aggressive cloud buffering when you make your composites. All of these take more computation time. So depending on the area, I think for your country, these might help and you can run these basically on the fly. So I would try that first. I would try hand selecting imagery and you can reference the presentation in course materials, and I would try aggressive cloud masking and aggressive cloud buffering. So so I see that we have reached the 1 hour and a half mark. Vanessa, Remy, everybody, is it okay if I take 2 minutes just to close the sessions and say some things? Well, I'm going to.
Yes, please, Erik.
I'm going to. Anyway, I just want to again say thank you to everybody for taking the course, for spending time with us, for attending this webinar. I know it is not easy, and really appreciate everybody's attention and effort with this. I also want to say that we are a very friendly team of people, and this is a work in progress. So we'd like to work with you, the users. This is we are developing this platform every day. So something new happens every day. So what we want, or what we would like, is a conversation with you, the users of the platform, to tell us what you would like to see, what you want it to do that it does not do. All of these things are open for discussion and for improvement. Also, likewise, if what was I going to say? If you do something with the platform that is very impactful, or you want to share with us, we also like to be inspired by you. So if you do something cool with the SEPAL platform, please feel free to share it with us. We would love to hear about it, either through the Google forum, through the course modules, through the emails, however you can share it with us. If you do something cool, something good with the platform, we'd really love to know about it, or if it helps you in any way. And then finally, I just would like to say that this course material will eventually all be put on the FAO e-learning something page. We will share that information with you afterwards. And so these videos, this course, all of the material will be always available to you as reference. And again, we really consider this a partnership between you and us, and we want to make something that helps you do what you want to do. So please do not be afraid to tell us anything, to tell us what you need from this, what you want to do, and we will try our best to make that happen. And I just want to say thank you to the team that set up all of the translators, the technical team that enabled the webinar, the SEPAL team for making the course possible and this webinar possible. And thanks again to you for your attention.